She was often called an alien princess, not because she claimed to be one, but because people felt she did not belong to the normal world. Wherever she went, heads turned. Her face was sharp yet soft, her eyes distant, as if she was always thinking about something far away. She had grown up different, surrounded by attention, expectations, and praise. People admired her beauty, but very few truly knew her. Even fewer tried. From the outside, her life looked perfect. She had everything many people dreamed of: confidence, grace, and a presence that filled a room without effort. But inside, she carried a quiet loneliness. She had learned early that people loved the image of her more than the real person. Over time, she stopped expecting much from others. Love, to her, became something practical, not magical. That was why her decision to marry Evan surprised everyone. Evan was plain. That was the word most people used, even if they did not say it out loud. He was not ugly, not handsome, just there. He dressed simply, spoke politely, and never tried to stand out. He worked a regular job, came home on time, and lived a life that followed routine. When he entered a room, people barely noticed. When he left, no one remembered the moment. Friends whispered that she could do better. Family members asked if she was sure. Some thought it was a phase. Others thought she was joking. A woman like her, they believed, should be with someone powerful, exciting, or impressive. Someone who matched her glow. But she did not see Evan the way they did Dot to her. He was safe. He never competed with her, never tried to control her, never demanded she become smaller. He listened more than he spoke. He respected her silence. When the world felt loud and fake, Evan felt calm and real. That felt enough. Dot. She did not marry him for passion. She married him for peace. Dot. In the early days of their marriage, life moved quietly. Evan woke up early, made coffee, and left for work. She slept a little longer, moved slowly through the morning, and spent her days reading, thinking, or simply watching the world from a distance. In the evenings, they ate together, talked about small things, and went to bed without drama. Dot. There were no big fights. No burning romance either. Dot. She often thought she understood him completely. He was predictable. He liked simple food, old music, and quiet weekends. He never talked about dreams or ambitions. When asked about his past, he answered briefly, without detail. It felt like there was nothing hidden inside him, and that made her feel powerful. She believed she had chosen down, not because she was weak, but because she was wise. In her mind, she was the interesting one, the complex one, the mystery. Evan was the steady ground beneath her feet, useful but ordinary. Sometimes, when they attended events together, she noticed the way people looked at them. Their eyes would move from her to him, then back again, confused. She could almost hear their thoughts. Why him? What does she see in him? She never corrected them. Evan stood beside her quietly, never embarrassed, never proud. He let her shine without stepping into the light. She mistook that for lack of depth. She assumed silence meant emptiness. At night, lying next to him, she sometimes wondered if she had made the right choice. Not because Evan was unkind, but because life felt too calm, too still. She told herself that excitement was overrated, that passion faded, that comfort mattered more in the long run. Still, a small voice inside her whispered that something was missing. Evan noticed her distance, though he never mentioned it. He noticed the way her eyes drifted away during conversations, the way she smiled politely instead of warmly. He noticed how she spoke about love like it was a contract, not a feeling. Yet he stayed the same, patient, present. Quiet. To him, loving her was not about being seen. It was about staying. She did not know this. She believed Evan had no hidden layers because he never showed them. She believed she was the one making the sacrifice by choosing a simple man. In truth, she never asked herself what Evan might have given up to be with her. Their home reflected their marriage. Clean, organized, and calm. No loud colors, no personal clutter. Everything had its place. It felt more like a safe shelter than a shared dream. Occasionally, she caught Evan staring at her when he thought she was not looking. His expression was not desire, not admiration, but something deeper, something heavy. She brushed it off, assuming he was just grateful. After all, why wouldn't he be? She was the alien princess, the one people admired, the one who could have chosen anyone. And he was just Evan. That is what she believed. What she did not see was the weight Evan carried in silence. The way he absorbed the world instead of reacting to it. The way he stored emotions instead of releasing them. His plainness was not emptiness, it was restraint. But in part one of their story, she was still blind to that truth. She believed she had settled for less, unaware that she had married a man who had already given her more than she knew. And the quiet life she thought she controlled was slowly preparing her for a realization that would change everything. Life continued in its quiet, predictable rhythm. She still thought of Evan as plain, ordinary, and perhaps even a little boring. She watched him go about his routines, never imagining that behind that calm exterior, he carried a world of feeling she had never noticed. She assumed she understood him, but one ordinary evening was about to change everything. It began when she was looking for some old papers in the drawer of their small study. She had always liked to keep things tidy, moving books and papers around as she pleased. That day, she noticed a small, worn notebook tucked behind a stack of folders. She had never seen it before, and curiosity tugged at her. She picked it up, thinking it might contain something as mundane as bills or reminders. But when she opened it, she froze. The pages were filled with sketches, dozens of them, delicate and detailed. She frowned. She had never known Evan to draw, and she had never seen him take any particular interest in art. The drawings were not random. They were full of meaning, full of emotion. And most striking of all, almost all of them featured her. There was a sketch of her standing by the window in the morning light, hair messy and clothes loose, completely unaware she was being observed. Another showed her laughing at something small, her face soft and radiant. There was a third, where she was sitting on the couch late at night, reading, lost in thought, completely alone. The sketches were not just images. They were moments captured with care, with understanding, with love. She felt a strange mix of emotions. At first, surprise, then curiosity, then slowly an unfamiliar warmth that made her chest tighten. She realized she had never truly seen Evan not like this. She had always dismissed him as plain, quiet, and simple, but here he was, revealing pieces of the world he carried inside him. Pieces he had never spoken of, but had been watching and feeling all along. She kept turning the pages, unable to stop. The drawings were not just beautiful, they were intimate. They showed details she had never shared with anyone, moments so private she had assumed no one noticed. He had seen everything. The quiet sadness in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. The way her lips curved when she was genuinely happy. The subtle gestures she made when she was lost in thought. He had captured them all with tenderness. A strange thought crossed her mind. She had judged him so quickly, so confidently, for being ordinary. And yet, he had a depth she had never imagined. He had feelings and observations so intense that he could not express them in words, so he expressed them in art. She realized that the man she had dismissed as simple was carrying entire worlds. Within him worlds she had ignored because she thought she already knew him. As she studied the drawings, she remembered all the little things she had overlooked before. How he always noticed when she was sad, even when she pretended everything was fine. How he remembered tiny details about her preferences and habits that no one else seemed to care about. how he quietly adapted to her moods without complaint or expectation. She had assumed he was just being polite. Now she saw it differently. It was not politeness, it was understanding. Deep, patient, and unspoken understanding. Her mind began to replay their life together. Every time she had thought him unremarkable, there had been a quiet act of love she had not noticed. The time he had stayed up late, fixing the broken lock on her door because he knew she would worry. The mornings he had made her coffee exactly the way she liked it without asking, knowing she liked small surprises. The countless moments of kindness she had taken for granted, thinking they were ordinary. She felt a pang of guilt. She had underestimated him for so long, thinking she was the one carrying all the complexity and depth in their marriage. She had treated him as if he were only a shadow, only a support, someone to make her life easier. She had never imagined that he was seeing her, truly seeing her, in ways no one else ever had. That night, she found herself sitting beside him on the couch, the sketchbook open on her lap. Evan noticed but did not speak. He only watched her quietly, as he always did, giving her the space to feel what she needed to feel. Why? Didn't you ever show me this? She asked finally, her voice soft. He shrugged slightly, almost embarrassed. I wasn't sure you would care, he said. I didn't want to bother you. I just... Drew. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she had never noticed before. Vulnerability, humility, a quiet pride in his work, but also a fear that it might be too much, too personal, too deep for her to understand. She realized she had spent so much time looking for excitement, glamour, and drama that she had ignored the beauty that had been in front of her all along. For the first time, she began to notice the small ways Evan expressed his love. The gentle way he handed her a blanket when she was cold, the soft tone he used when she was upset, the way he listened without interrupting or judging. She realized these gestures were not ordinary. They were the work of someone who truly understood what it meant to care. The next few days, she found herself observing him differently. She watched how he interacted with the world, how he treated strangers with patience and respect, how he carried responsibility without complaint. She began to see that his plainness was not a lack of depth, but a quiet mastery of life. He did not need to shout to be heard. He did not need to shine to matter. His strength was hidden, and that made it all the more powerful. She began to feel a new kind of love, one that was quiet but intense. It was not the fiery passion she had thought she wanted, but a steady warmth that filled her heart. She realized that love was not always about excitement or drama. Sometimes it was about being seen, being understood, and being valued for who you truly are. One evening, she sat down beside him again, and without thinking, she put her hand on his. He looked at her, surprised but not uncomfortable. She felt a wave of emotion she had never experienced before. It was gratitude, awe, and affection, all rolled into one. I think I've been wrong about you, she said softly. He smiled slightly, a quiet, knowing smile. About what? About everything, she admitted. I thought you were ordinary. I thought you were playing. I thought I had to make the most of you, instead of just seeing you for who you are. I see it now. I see you. He reached for her hand and squeezed it gently. I never needed you to see me in the way you thought you should, he said. I just wanted to be here, with you, quietly, steadily. That was enough for me. She realized in that moment that she had been chasing the wrong kind of love all her life. She had looked for fireworks, for grand gestures, for recognition. And yet, the most profound love had been quietly waiting beside her all along. It had never shouted for attention. It had never demanded admiration. It had only existed, steady and true, patiently waiting for her to notice. From that day forward, something began to change in her. She started to pay attention to Evan in ways she never had. She asked about his thoughts, his feelings, and his experiences. She listened without judgment, without trying to control the conversation, simply letting him speak and trusting that what he shared mattered. She began to understand that depth is not always loud. Some of the most profound things are hidden beneath calm surfaces, revealed only to those willing to look closely. Evan continued to draw, though he never expected her to look. But now she asked to see his sketches. She looked at each one with care, noticing the details she had missed before. She asked questions, laughed at small jokes hidden in the drawings, and felt the emotion behind every line. Each sketch became a doorway into his mind, his heart, and the way he experienced the world. And slowly, she began to fall in love all over again, not with the idea of him, not with the image people called plain, but with the man he truly was. She realized that he had been extraordinary all along. She had just needed the courage to see it. In discovering his hidden world, she discovered herself. She saw her own mistakes, her own assumptions, and her own inability to recognize the quiet beauty in the ordinary. She understood that love is not just about passion or excitement. It is about noticing, valuing, and cherishing the depth that exists even when it is not obvious. The ordinary life she thought she had chosen began to feel remarkable. The man she thought she had underestimated began to feel limitless. And in that quiet revelation, she found a new kind of joy, a steady light that promised to guide them both through whatever the future might bring. For the first time, she understood. Sometimes the most extraordinary people are those who do not need to be noticed. And sometimes the most extraordinary love is the one that has been quietly waiting, patiently, for you to see it. After discovering Evan's sketches and the quiet depth of his feelings, her world began to change in ways she could never have imagined. She started noticing things she had overlooked for years. The gentle way he folded her clothes, the care he took when arranging their meals, the quiet patience he showed when she was restless or anxious. Every small gesture suddenly felt significant, full of meaning. She realized that she had spent so much of her life looking for excitement, flashes of drama, or grand declarations of love. She had thought those were the only ways to measure the strength of a relationship. And yet, here was Evan, steady, patient, and deeply caring, showing her that love did not always need to be loud to be real. The quiet acts, the unseen moments, the small sacrifices, they spoke more than words ever could. One evening, they sat together on the balcony, the sky painted with the soft colors of sunset. The city below hummed with life, but up here, it felt as though the world had slowed down just for them. She turned to him, her heart full, and asked a question she had never dared to ask before. "Evan, why did you never tell me about your drawings?" He looked at her, a small smile forming on his lips. "I was afraid," he admitted softly. "I didn't know if you would understand. I didn't want to seem too much." She reached for his hand and held it firmly. "Too much? You were never too much. I just didn't see it. I thought I knew you, but I was wrong. You are more than I ever imagined." He squeezed her hand gently. "I just wanted to love you quietly. I thought that was enough." Her chest tightened. That simple sentence held a weight she had never fully understood before. To love quietly, to be present without needing to prove anything. That was the essence of Evan's heart, and she realized it had always been there, patiently waiting for her to notice. In the following weeks, she made a conscious effort to change. She listened more, spoke less, and tried to see Evan as he truly was. She asked about his thoughts, his dreams, and his feelings, not just out of curiosity, but because she wanted to understand him. She noticed how he responded, not with words alone, but with subtle gestures, with patience, and with care. She remembered all the times she had thought he was plain, and she felt a mix of guilt and awe. Guilt because she had underestimated him, overlooked him, and even judged him unfairly. Awe because she had finally opened her eyes to the quiet, extraordinary depth of the man she had married. One rainy afternoon, she found him sitting at the small table in their study, sketching again. She watched him from the doorway for a moment, marveling at the way he moved, careful, deliberate, and yet full of life. She stepped closer, peering at the sketches he had been working on. They were not of her this time, but of ordinary things around the house. A teacup, a potted plant, a chair by the window. Yet even in these simple objects, she saw the same careful attention, the same depth of feeling. He saw beauty in things she had never noticed, and she realized he saw beauty in the world because he had always seen it in her first. "Do you ever show these to anyone?" she asked quietly. "Not really," he said, looking up at her. "I used to be afraid of people thinking I was foolish. But now, I don't mind. You see them. You see me." She smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I see you now. I wish I had seen you like this from the start." Evan shook his head gently. "It doesn't matter when you see it. What matters is that you do now." Those words stayed with her long after. She realized that life was not about rushing to understand everything immediately. Some truths reveal themselves slowly, quietly, in their own time. And sometimes the most extraordinary love waits patiently for the right moment to be recognized. Over time, their relationship began to change in subtle but powerful ways. She no longer felt the need to dominate conversations or seek attention. She no longer worried about what others thought of her choices. She had discovered that her husband, the man she once considered plain, was remarkable in ways she had never imagined. They spent more time together, not out of obligation, but out of desire. She found herself asking for his opinions, valuing his thoughts, and appreciating his silent presence. And Evan, in turn, seemed to blossom in response to her newfound attention. He laughed more freely, shared small stories from his past, and even began to talk about his dreams, things he had kept hidden for years. One night, as they were preparing dinner together, she watched him carefully chop vegetables, the lines of concentration on his face. She suddenly felt a rush of emotion she could not contain. She stepped closer and wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her head against his back. "I never knew," she whispered. "I never knew how extraordinary you were." He turned his head slightly, resting his cheek against hers. "I am just me," he said softly. "And now, you see me. That is enough." She laughed quietly, feeling tears prick her eyes. "It's more than enough. It's everything." From that day forward, she carried a new understanding of love. She realized that it was not about grand gestures, passionate words, or dramatic moments. Love was about presence, attention, patience, and understanding. It was about seeing the depth in another person, even when the world overlooked it. She also learned to see herself differently. She recognized her own pride, her assumptions, and the way she had measured people by superficial standards. She had thought she was choosing wisely by marrying someone ordinary, but in reality, she had been given a gift, a man whose quiet strength and understanding had been there all along. As months passed, their life together became richer in ways she could not have anticipated. Even the quiet evenings, once dull and uneventful, now held meaning. She listened to him talk about small things he noticed. She shared moments she had never spoken about before. And together, they built a rhythm that felt deeply satisfying. One weekend, they went for a walk in the park near their home. The trees were beginning to change color, the leaves a mix of gold, red, and brown. She noticed how Evan paused frequently to observe small details, a leaf caught in the sunlight, the way a bird moved across the sky. He shared his observations with her, not to impress, but simply to share the beauty he saw. She realized that his way of seeing the world had always been his gift to her. The quiet depth, the careful attention, the love in small gestures, they were all ways he had been communicating with her long before she noticed. And now she felt a sense of wonder and gratitude she had never experienced before. That night, as they sat together on the balcony watching the stars, she reached for his hand once more. "I understand now," she said softly. "I understand what love really is." Evan looked at her, his eyes calm but filled with emotion. "I have always loved you," he said simply. "I have always been here, waiting for you to see me." She squeezed his hand, feeling a deep connection she had never felt before. "I see you now, and I love you, not just for what I thought you were, but for everything you are." In that quiet moment, she understood something important. Sometimes, the most extraordinary people are the ones who do not demand attention. Sometimes the most extraordinary love is the one that waits patiently, quietly, and steadfastly. And sometimes it takes time for us to truly see the people we love, to recognize their depth, and to appreciate the beauty that has been there all along. She felt a peace she had never known. The alien princess, the woman who had always felt apart from the world, had finally found her place not in glamour, excitement, or admiration, but in the quiet, steady love of the man she had once considered plain. And in that love, she discovered a truth she would carry for the rest of her life. Sometimes what seems ordinary is extraordinary. Sometimes the person you overlook quietly holds the power to change everything. And sometimes real love is not about being dazzled, but about being truly seen. From that day forward, their life together was no longer ordinary. Every gesture, every smile, every shared glance became part of a deeper connection. She no longer worried about appearances or what others thought. She had learned to see, to value, and to love in a way she never had before. The alien princess had finally found her heart's home in the quiet, steady, and extraordinary love of the man she had once thought was plain.